Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI TV on both Twitch and YouTube, and we're here for round 3 of Team Jaaag versus Team V12. The Grade 1 FIA venue, Circuit of the Americas in Austin, Texas, welcomes us back today from the weekend that we just had here as well. Proposed originally in 2010, with the plans coming to fruition on August 3rd, 2012, when the first layer of tarmac was laid. And fast forward to September 21st of the same year, and the circuit was finished, officially opening on October 21st, with Mario Andretti running the first ceremonial laps in a Lotus 79. I'm John Dalton, your lead commentator. Alongside me, Phil Roberts, and bringing you the pictures is Jesse Lee, and of course a big hello to our live stewards. Welcome, everyone.
Yeah, welcome indeed. I was going to say, John, like the timeline from when it was started. What do you mean, like when you say the first bit of tarmac? You mean like does that include everything, like all the elevations and stuff? Because it was started being built and completed in the same year.
I mean, it's a pretty fantastic spectacle when you look at the dates. Yeah, just looking at it online, that's what I found, and that's what I've taken to be truth. So for a whole circuit to be constructed in a month, I find it quite astonishing, for sure.
No, I don't think so.
I don't know. The internet never lies, Phil.
I can't see it being made in a month. No. Maybe round the clock. Maybe round the clock. But well, we've been told by Jesse they broke ground in 2010. So that sounds more reasonable than there's 2 years to build a track. That sounds a bit more the right.
I mean, if it was construction began in 2010, and then of course the first layer of tarmac was laid, that's only a month to pave a whole circuit. That sounds a bit more feasible, maybe.
I mean, that's what the phrase "break ground" means. That you start building, like the project officially began, or I'm pretty sure it began before then, because obviously we get into my own sort of expertise now, but like you get like there's probably like years of design that's gone into it as well, and God knows what else. But yeah, we're up to now, John. Round 3, obviously.
Round 3.
Yeah, round 3.
Halfway through.
Yeah. I was gonna say it's been quite. I think I've only done the first race as with stewarding, and then I forgot what I was doing last week. But yeah, I think it's been quite good so far, this champ, though. It's been interesting to see some of these old cars, and it's been a heck of a soundtrack. Like these V12s, and the Jaags aren't. Let's just say they aren't bad on the ears either.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the V8 engine of the Jaguar sounding very good indeed, but not as good, of course, as the V12 Aston Martin, who are looking very strong here today at Circuit of the Americas. The top 5 so far being covered by the Aston Martin. And then we've got Andy Boardman, the first Jag on the board in P6. Number 69, ironically, on that one. Rybecki goes to the top of the board with a 208.3, just about beating Ted Edwards, Jordan Daly, and Spoda Skrillex and Christian Lindgren also locked together. So the Aston Martin's looking like a very strong manufacturer at the moment. And of course, Team V12 in the lead at the moment, 315 points to Team Jaag's 270. And I assume, Phil, that lead is going to get forever bigger looking at the board today.
Yeah, it's going to get a lot bigger. I think one of the main strengths of this Aston has over the Jag around here is that long back straight. I forgot what turn the razor is between turn 12 and 13. I think that's right. It's the one that leads you up to the hairpin towards the end. But because it's so long, this Aston has the opportunity to stretch its legs, and I think that's one thing we found so far this season, is that the Aston is a lot faster in a straight line. I mean, we've had Rybecki and Edwards, who drove the Lexus for World Tour around here a few days ago, say that the Aston feels similar to the Lexus in a way. Like, it's not good through the corners, but you gain that advantage in the lap back on that long straight. So we're going to see where the Jag's stronger. I think we've said, certainly at Suzuka, I'm not sure if it applied last round, but the first round of Suzuka, they were saying that the Jag is a lot stronger on a race stint, so it's a lot gentler on the tyres. than the Jag is, and should be a bit stronger on the brakes, I think. Not only is it because it's got lower top speed, but also I think the Aston, well, last time I drove it, it felt like it didn't have brakes, John.
Yeah, obviously the Jag as well, carrying 4 less cylinders up front, so certainly going to be a thing to bear in mind there. Matthias Byron just leaving the pits to have another stab at it. He's going to have an out lap and then a flying lap, and that will be all for the Sim Brothers Racing entry as the number 100, currently down in P17, mixing it in with the back end of the Jaguar field. So looking to see if they can propel themselves towards the top. Of course, Rybecki currently sits on pole with a 208.200. Ted Edwards not far behind with Jordan Daly. And a slightly smaller gap back to Spoda Skrillex and Christian Lindgren. Between those two, going to see them duking it out in the race, no doubt. And then we begin to see the first gaggle of Jaguars with Andy Bourman, Raphael Huell, and Yao Manzo. Tom Shipston just inside the top 10 as well, and of course Les Stevenson just in there as well. Oliver Mulder looked good at Misano last time out. He's going to try and improve, but back to the pits he goes with Mike Redford. Those two drivers on the exact same lap time. Neil Pimlott just behind, Sherlin George behind him, and then Kevin Boss in P15, Friday's silver champion from last season. Foster showing us his pirouetting skills in the chat earlier on as he came through turn 1 in a wet practice and did many loops, so that's going to be something to look out for as well. And of course Richard Whittle, Keith Whittle on your screen at the moment, comes to the line at 212.957. Unfortunately not enough to overtake Tim Ireland, but enough to close the gap nonetheless. Now Matthias Byron, last shot at it. Here he goes, the number 100 coming through the last corner. Going to want to get a clean exit towards turn 1. Of course, the big incline there you see in the back of the shot, cars going up it, very late, kind of braking on it later than you kind of expect, as of course uphill the momentum is shaved off by gravity essentially. So about the 100-meter board, I think you brake and kind of dart in to the inside to try and set yourself up for a good lap. Tom Shipston, of course, just inside the top 10. RPMS Sim Sport had a relatively good run, I'd say, at the World Tour last time out this weekend. A few connection issues troubling those guys, and yeah, very unfortunate indeed. Tom Shipston into the pits. He'll take no further part as the checkered flag comes out, Phil.
Yeah, indeed. I just noticed I think the next car up on track, we're going to commentators curse this now, John, but this is next car up on track, Kevin Boss. He's nearly a second up on his lap time at the minute. He's actually no, he's about 6 temps, 5 temps. I got to be excited as he goes through a braking zone as he's just coming through the what do you call that, like long right-hander towards the end of the lap, like the carousel or something. Just coming through the last turns now as we move to Jordan Daly, currently breaking even with his times at the minute. We move back to Kevin Boss now. He's coming through the last corner, still about half a second up. This should bring him to about P13, P14 maybe. Just a bit of a bad exit. Oh, there you go. So I think he was about 6 temps up halfway through his lap, so I think he just had a bit of a moment for the last few corners or something there, John. But move on now. Jordan Daly still he's about breaking even really with his current time. He's about maybe able to take Ted Edwards. He's got a very good exit for this last turn. It's just about phased out there, but yeah, it's very close between P2 and 3 there. And Ted Edwards still in very impressive P2 from Ted. There's still a few cars to go. I just noticed, I think the closest one that may challenge maybe Raphael Huell and the Jaguar just coming from the last corner. You see Spoda Skrillex on the screen. He's just had an invalid lap. Raphael Huell goes P4 though, overtakes Spoda Skrillex for position, and Ted Edwards, will he improve on his time? No, not quite, but still a very impressive showing there. Victor Rybecki in P1, and he's very familiar with that V12, isn't he, John? I think he, even outside of this sort of championship, he likes to drive that car. Very impressive pole lap from him. About what's that? 100, about just over a 10 faster than P2 and 3, Ted and Daly in P2 and 3.
Yeah, say Rybecki, one of the V12 connoisseurs, shall we say, amongst the Connection Loss Racing crew, of course, in RCI with us for quite a while. Daly, though, looking strong in sectors 1 and 2, so if you can tidy up that last sector, certainly could be challenging Ted and Rybecki. That's some fantastic times at the top there. Of course, Raphael Huell, the late gain into the front row of the grid, and the Gagler Jaguar was kind of sitting just in and around the top 10. So I have to see how they fare over, of course, a race stint, as I believe we do have the standings coming up for you now this evening. Here we go. So the categories are divided into pro for the Jaguars and silver for the Aston Martin. So not is everybody fighting for the manufacturer, they are also fighting for their kind of inter-team and overall standings individually, shall we say, as well. So Raphael Huell at the top of the Jaguars with 40 points, just a single point behind Andy Boardman with 39. Grim Lilith not with us tonight, unfortunately, on 30 points, and Les Stevenson on 26. Marco Fucuscio on 23, tied with Yao Manzo, who was a late sign-up last round to the series. Kevin Boss, as I said earlier, last Friday's silver champion on 20 points. Hubert Hauser on 18, tied with Richard Whittle, and our very own event admin Tim Ireland, who's cooked up this manic idea on 14 points. Now coming into page 2, of course, Keith Whittle with 12, Matthew Malcolm on 0, Nicholas Nordquist also on 0, and Aaron Jackson has signed out of the championship and will take no further part. Now moving on to the Astons, of course, Jordan Daly and Spoda Skrillex bashing heads at the top, both 43 points apiece. Christian Lindgren and Wojciech Rybecki next up, also clashing heads on 34 points apiece, before we get to Adam Romaniuk and Tom Shipston tied as well with 26 points. Matthias Byron on 23, Ollie Mulder on 20, Neil Pimlott on 18, also tied with Sherlin George just inside the top 10. And of course, onto the second page, Mike Redford tied with Martin Foster, and Ted Edwards, of course, in P13 with 12 points. After missing Mazzano, he was, of course, in the commentary box alongside me. So, very competitive championship, Phil. Currently in the manufacturers, lots of ties in and amongst the Aston Martins, but of course, not only are they fighting for the overall championship between, of course, Aston and Jag, they're not only fighting for, of course, the manufacturer as well. They're also fighting within their own classes, and it's going to be one of those scenarios where, you know, friendly fire could unravel the dominance, should we say, of the Aston Martin so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's I'm not really sure how much camaraderie there is in some of these ones. I know that we've had in our Discord, the RCI Discord, there is a Monday gang chat where we have what's that, Pimlott, Huell, Kevin Boss, Les Stevenson, and Tim Ireland at the minute. And apart from Pimlott, everyone else is a Jag on in that channel. So there's probably a bit of camaraderie going on in that channel right now. But I must admit, it's very close in that championship. The amount of times where you said, "Oh, he's tied for points," It's usually you'd expect that tight affair after the first round or something, naturally, because it's only been one race basically, but we're still very tight for points everywhere else. So yeah, it's been a tight call for most of these, particularly in Aston class, I must admit. But yeah, so hopefully we should see some decent racing today. But I would say, John, they're not, in the greatest respect, I don't think these drivers are going to be focusing too much on the Jag versus Aston battle, but more their own championship, should we say?
Yeah, I think everybody's going to be focusing more on, of course, their own championship rather than, of course, the manufacturer's title, should we say, between, of course, Jag and Aston Martin. Of course, 10 seconds now, pretty much, until the cars will fire the engines and get underway for today. Looking to the top right-hand side of the screen, weather is looking clear for the next 30 minutes or so. Track status is green, despite all the rubber that was laid down on Saturday. It looks like it has rained at some point during the switchover day, shall we say. 17 degrees in the air, 19 degrees down on the track. So looking pretty good indeed. Sheldon George there, starting from the pit lane. Looks like he's forgotten to click drive. Might be a sensible thing, of course, with the pinch point of turn 1, Phil. Of course, everybody trying to filter into the corner. It's a very wide entry, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 cars wide if you're feeling very brave. But that soon filters down. When you hit the apex of that hairpin, it's only realistically 2, maybe even 3 cars wide at a push. So it's always going to be the place where the majority trip up. of course, if you start from the pit lane, you can have a very clean start indeed. Of course, Rybecki, your pole sitter for today. Ted Edwards just behind, looking very racy, and Jordan Daly equally as so, just behind there in the red Aston Martin as well. Lots of red Aston Martins on the field. Going to have to be careful on this one with Ted Edwards, Jordan Daly, and Matthias Byron all in very similarly liveried cars. So going to make our time up here feel very interesting indeed. Of course, the RCI website is in full swing, where you can check out all of the events anytime, day or night. That's racerci.com. Head on over there now. You'll see lots of things kicking off this week. Of course, Wednesday, we'll see our Sprint Championship begin with a slightly different format. Of course, 2 30-minute races with no mandatory pit stop required, meaning it's flat-out racing from the green to the checker. Sign-ups are still open on this one with plenty of space as well. And I, for one, have put my name down for that one. So if you do want to get on track with myself, that is your time to do so.
I'm that champ as well.
And Phil Roberts as well signed
yeah.
up as well. So if you want to see what me and Phil can offer you on a track as well as up in the comms box, that is certainly the one to get yourselves down for. According to Jesse Lee in our ears as well, that should make it to RCI TV. So if you have wanted some airtime, fancy yourself as watching back on the broadcast and spotting yourself, then again, be sure to get your name down for that one. Thursday is, of course, for the iRacing members with the IMSA Season 2 Championship finishing up. That's heading to Le Mans, so that should be a good one to keep your eye on as well. Friday, of course, an empty slot next week. That's due to the GT2 Championship, rounded off in Spa Friday just gone. Jordan Daly taking honours after a very close finale with Christopher Streppen. Of course, only losing out to Jordan Daly due to having more wins, so 270 points apiece. It was a good old-fashioned countback. So 270 points apiece, and Daly won it on wins alone. And Ted Edwards taking home the bronze trophy in pro. Meanwhile, in silver, it was Kevin Boss fending off Peter Varga, 305 points to 269, with Mike Jones coming in third. And also on the website at the moment, 2 brand new events, including the Watkins Glen 2 hours 40. That's serving a purpose of a pre-test for the official iRacing 6 hours of the Glen, and that takes place on Saturday the 25th of May with us, of course mirroring the official car entry list without any custom BOP. This will give you the best preparation environment for the 6 hours. And lastly, before we kick off tonight, Friday's new championship is Gran Turismo 2 Diventa Italiano, taking you on a whistle-stop tour of the Italian tracks within ACC and GT2 cars. Kicking off at Monza, heading to Imola, and then on to Misano. 1 hour, 20-minute races with 1 litre of fuel in a mandatory pit stop, leaving strategy very open. And that kicks off Friday, May 31st. And that takes us very nicely now to the rolling start, of course, for tonight's race. Round 3 of Team Jaaag versus Team V12. Cars, of course, 2x2, very wide straight, as we mentioned earlier on. We wait for the green flag to wave from the gantry on the right-hand side of your screen. It's obviously a very long hold, and green has gone. The loud pedal gets smashed through the firewall as they head up to turn 1, of course, beginning the climb into the apex. Ted Edwards on the outside. Jordan Daly looks to the inside. Rybecki hovers off the outside of Ted Edwards very nicely in the background, 2 to 3 wide, and it's all going to have to single out as we come, of course, into the S's, the tricky section. Of course, the left-right nature, you've got to be very careful on the track limits as we head through turns 3 and 4, and that's Tom Shipstead into the back of Matthias Byron. Very well held there from both drivers. Kevin Boss looking in his mirrors, probably rubbing his hands with glee that people are already tussling to try and build some kind of gap, and Raphael Huell finds himself in a pack of Aston Martins, and Les Stevenson there up the inside of Ollie Mulder in turn 8, but the inside will become Ollie Mulder's favourite side for the next 3 corners, but looks like Les Stevenson has the drag off the corner. He's able to get that Jag and trying to cover off the inside. This is going to get very pinchy into turn 11, and just about both drivers making it out alive, and hopefully the V12s can stretch their legs, but Tom Shipstead stretching his a little bit too soon. Oh, that's Martin Foster, I beg your pardon, not Tom Shipstead. Martin Foster is round gaining those all-important style points he spoke about in the chat earlier, Phil. Let's catch a race replay.
Yeah, let's see. This is Matthias Byron coming through the S's as I think that's Tom Shipstead, just giving him a little nibble there. Nothing really to see there. I don't think nothing really. But must admit, there's been a bit of a tussle for the lead at the minute between Rybecki and Daly. I was going to mention, as they're still bumping each other right now on the replay. I don't know what's happening there between those two, but I'm going to mention just out of turn one, Ted Edwards had a bit of a tried to make a bit of a move around the outside of Rybecki into turn one. Didn't work, and he ended up on the I wouldn't call them anti-cut, whatever you want to call them, John. The sausage curb on the outside of turn one. Grabbed a little bit too much there and just suffered on the exit. And Jordan Daly had a pretty neat move around the outside of Ted Edwards going through turn two. So yeah, I think Rybecki's had a little bit too much of Daly's door towards the towards the end. I was going to mention as well, like I think some of these Jags may just suffer through the long straight. I'm not really sure where Raphael Huell's. I think Raphael Huell's still. Where is he now? He's on P4 still, so still doing a decent job in the lead. I say the lead Jaguar, but yeah, it's been pretty good as we now move on to the replay. Hoping we're going to see a bit more of Daly and Rybecki there, just coming through the little complex after the straight. Bit of door banging, nothing really. I think it's this next bit here that's quite. Oh, we're not going to see that. Never mind. Hopefully we're going to see more of the replay. Here we go again. Sorry, John. This is just coming into the next one. We're just going to see a little bit of door banging here. I think they just more or less just weren't aware of where the other was going, so probably a bit more innocent knocks, should we say, John, than anything malicious. At least from the outset, from that replay.
I don't know, it looked like Daly wanted to certainly pinch Rybecki into the inside of turn 17. I think Rybecki was having none of it, trying to make, of course, the corner entry that little bit wider. But Rybecki just about half a second to the good now on Jordan Daly as they come down, of course, the back straight. In the background, we see Christian Lindgren trying to defend for Raphael Huell and Spoda Skrillex. And I think that's Andy Boardman in the number 69 getting involved as well into the hairpin over the sausage curbs. Andy Boardman goes. A little bit of an ollie and a kickflip ahoy with the Jaguar. Spoda Skrillex getting very close. I'm not sure he knew where Andy Boardman had ended up after his escapade off track. And Spoda Skrillex will move up into P5. Yeah, P6, sorry. On that one, Spoda Skrillex goes over the curb as well. And that's going to allow Andy Boardman the traction now around the outside. A little dab of the brakes there, trying to keep the car balanced as he heads through the double apexer of 17 and 18, but Spoda Skrillex isn't done yet. He's going to want that position back for sure, and Yao Manzo is now pressuring him in the back as well, coming into the last corner. Looks like Yao's having a look in the background. Side by side they go. Be very careful. Of course, the anti-cut curbs on the inside and the outside. Les Stevenson about to get involved in this one as well, and with him, he brings Mike Redford. So Les Stevenson now sizing up the move as he comes into turn one, tucking in the slipstream, darts out, goes for the late braking. Can he get the Jag drawn up in time? He splits between Manzo and Skrillex as Raphael Huell is off the road ahead as well, and that's going to allow Mike Redford to bring himself into the train, Phil.
Yeah, indeed. I think Redford probably just needs to wait just the main straight. He's got the legs in that Aston to get past these two Jags in a straight line, so we're just going to hopefully just see a little bit of patience from Redford maybe, but must just go back to the Stevenson overtake. I think you mentioned it before turn one. It's not just the geometry, it's not just the track width, John, but it's also when you go up the hill, you brake so much later than where you think you need to be. And I think lap one was, as you said before, just a bit of chaos, but mostly drawn through the fact that, as we see, that's a heck of a move. Speaking of T1 dives, there's Spoda Skrillex there just catching. Who was that? I think that's Huell, is it? In the yeah, it was Raphael Huell, just kind of catching Huell napping a little bit. He's gotten past him again, but. Yeah, I think that was okay for a dive. As we see Spoda Skrillex there just enjoying the power of V12 over the poor V8 Jag there. Now, John, one thing about this Jag, I'm not sure this is true or not, but obviously this is, as we see Tom Shipston try and get past. Who's this now? Is that Neil Pimlott's pink Aston? Yeah, it is. I've just been told that is majestically. About this Jag, John, this is obviously an Emil Fay Jaguar. Is it true that they just went into a Jag showroom and just picked some Jag? Well, they C3s. I think they're C3s. I'm hoping I'm right with that one. But they just went into a Jag showroom and just converted a Jaguar privately, rather than like a works sort of GT3 car.
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it was. There was no actual factory Jaguar-backed effort, of course, in about 2011, 2012. when this car, of course, started production. Just quickly Googled just to see if I could find the story while you were talking there. And it looks like it was developed by Emil Fry's grandson, Lawrence and Freddie Barth. An experienced GT racer Gabriel Gardel joined the team during the races, and Rolf Mantis also joined the outfit for the Spa 24-hour in 2012. So it's a bit of a cobbled together car, should we say. It does sound like it was very much kind of, you know, into a Jag showroom by a Jaguar kind of G3, as we see side by side from Neil Pimlott and Ollie Mulder through the S's. We said that doesn't normally work, and it does in that case because both drivers did give enough work, gave enough room. Ollie Mulder tries the outside, and unfortunately there's no grip, and that really throws off the sequence for the next few corners. That's going to allow Matthias Byron to close in the gap as well. But it's a very flowing kind of section is sector 1. As soon as you kind of begin to put yourself offline through turns kind of 6 and 7, it all just kind of unfolds because you then can't get the car kind of drawn back to the correct side of the road for the next corner. So it's almost a bit like when you knock yourself out of line at Suzuka. The rest of the first sector just kind of doesn't flow properly, and you end up just kind of sliding wide, hitting curbs, grass, and maybe even spinning out, as we see Yao Manzo heading past. That was Raphael Huel, and meanwhile it's Aston on Aston, Tom Shipston and Mike Redford. Redford on the inside goes defensive. Shipston's going to try the old up and under, but can't get the drive off the corner, and over the speed humps once again Tom Shipston goes. And these speed humps are really upsetting these kind of older day kind of machines. We saw the Bentley taking a few of them over the weekend on Saturday, but nowhere near the reaction that these cars are putting out for them. So drivers hopefully have witnessed this. They're going to be a little bit more careful using the curbs, especially on the outside. Of course, the inside ones are kind of like your traditional anti-cuts. You can kind of hop the curb almost if your ride height is high enough at the front to obviously avoid catching the splitter. But of course, these speed humps really off-putting, and they're in quite a few places around the circuit, including the last turn here as well. So if you do overcook the entry to that, then you find yourselves over the speed humps. Ollie Mulder takes advantage of Neil Pimlott's slightly slower run. Can't get the overlap done before the start-finish line, so decides to tuck back in the slipstream of the Aston Martin. He's going to go the long way around this time into turn 1. It's going to be the last of the late breakers. Looks like Mulder's done it, but can he get it drawn up? He can't. He goes wide. He allows Matthias Byron through, but this time Ollie Mulder has the better run off the corner, so he can go defensive on Byron over the inside curb of turn 2 and settles it back in line, ready for the S's.
Yeah, I wasn't going. I was just saying, just as you were talking through that one. Sorry, John. I don't think that works. We've seen at least 3 cars now go around the outside of a high-speed turn around here, and it's just not come up for them. I mean, you could make an interesting point about the flow of a section. I mean, there's a fair few tracks like that in ACC, and I think GT3 cars in general, because of their relatively low air. I mean, this track isn't really. I mean, I'd argue this track isn't really designed for a GT3. It's definitely an open wheel, high downforce kind of track, really, where it suits those sort of cars. As we see Jordan Daly now challenging for the lead, going around the outside, and once again, doesn't work. But one day it will work, John. One day it will work, and I'm gonna be wrong, right? But for now, I'm gonna stick my mast to the pot, stick my flag to the mast, and say we'll go around the outside. Doesn't work around COTA, but maybe Jordan Dale will prove me wrong. He's certainly capable of proving me wrong. As now riding on board with Ted Edwards in P3, that's his Race Ventura teammate Jordan Daly just ahead, and just ahead of him is Rybecki in the lead, CLR 127 Aston Martin. Just come through the end of the track now, we can just see a little bit of steering movement. I think that's just because Ted's just in the aerodynamic wake. But going back to your point, sorry, John, was I think there's a fair few tracks like that where you just lose momentum, and you know you don't really want to slow down a bit more just to reset, and it's mostly just because the corners are just a complex of corners. You need to set up for an ideal exit out of the complex of corners. You can't really overtake someone through this bit we're coming up to now, or at least certainly I don't really think so. I saw an attempt during the World Tour 8 hour where it didn't come off very well for one car, but I think that's mostly just because you can't really focus on trying to overtake someone when there's another corner immediately afterwards, because you know you just need to think about where you're going to set your car basically, when you should be focusing just on setting it on the exit. As We move to a replay here. This is Ollie Mulder on Matthias Byron. There's Byron in the back, and he just gives him a little shove, and I think he's just pulling over just to wait for him. Yeah, he is. He just parked up there, so should expect just a 10-second penalty for that one. Takeout was returned, but no, Jesse Lee John has told us this is the replay Kevin Boss.
Yeah, Kevin Boss, and looks like Les Stevenson, maybe. Good old NASCAR style down the back straightaway. Possibly a little bump draft from the Roca Poker on Kevin Boss there. And the position is, of course, return or stayed the same. Sorry, there was no move attempted by Les there. So maybe Les is working together with the Jaguars, trying to propel themselves forward. And we do have an interesting drum roll from our head steward tonight, McKenna McConnell, giving us some excitement on, of course,
Tom
the...
was the head steward for tonight.
Oh, okay.
Race controller.
Apologies, McKenna on the race control. Of course, a drum roll there, and I was expecting a very big list of incidents to come through. We hit the drum roll, and unfortunately, there was only 2 from the opening lap, so it's been pretty chilled so far. So lap 1, turn 12, that's involving the 197 and the 127. It's a warning for the 127 for forcing another car off track. That was, of course, Ray Becky and Jordan Daly, the saga that we saw, of course, kind of 3 replays of. So no harm, no foul really on that one. And then a lap 2, turn 11, involving the 200 and the 21. The 21 brakes too early, and the 200 goes into the side and gets hit. Minor contact, but deemed a racing incident. I think that's what we're going to see on your screens here. The 21, of course, checking up. And then Raphael Huell, unfortunately, turning in. Not expecting there to be the rear end of Spoda Skrillex's Aston Martin on the apex, but unfortunately there was. This is the fight at the front, though. Of course, Rybecki out just over half a second, but of course, Jordan Daly on a charge with Ted Edwards just behind as well. Meanwhile, Matthias Byron making up a position on Marco Fucuscio. Of course, he waited for Ollie Mulder to get back underway, so Sim Brothers is slightly out of sequence in the number 100 there. And of course, at the front of the grid, Christian Lindgren, I just noticed, fastest lap of the race so far. So the Sim Brothers number 48 also on a charge to try and get to the front.
Oh, he's moving, John, isn't he? But I throw myself off with that comment. Sorry, John. But yeah, we move back to see this fight for the lead. Raphael Huell, and I really throw myself off now. Jordan Daly and Rita Rebecca just giving a bit of a nudge. I think this is turning a bit more into a touring car fight than a GT race. But I've been told that they do race touring cars around here, John. But we can maybe a bit of a long lap as we move on board, Jordan Dale. Probably just a bit of a nudge. Nothing really. Maybe I suspect maybe a warning, but I don't think any more than that. There's absolutely nothing that came of that one. It depends on how harsh the stewards want to feel for that one. But there's only so much we can see there from that one. They have all the views, all the camera angles, all of the telemetry, as they say, John. But I think Daly maybe just getting a bit, not frustrated, just a bit, angsty behind Rybecki. Pit window's open just now, and just as some of these guys just getting past the pit lane entry, Raphael Huell, though, coming through the second to last corner as the pit window opens, so it's just gone, thank you very much, I'll pit now. Not really sure if there's any advantage to pitting early. The only time I can really think of, John, is just particularly now. I mean, we got half an hour of the pit window open, so Raphael Huell, I suspect, isn't changing tyres if he is pitting this early. But again, and we're literally just up and down. So yeah, no tyre changes for Raphael Huell. The only, to be honest, I don't expect the Jags to be changing tyres. I suspect some Astons may be changing tyres. And that's a very interesting Jag, John. Are we allowed to say the branding on stream? Are we allowed to say silk cut on stream? I nearly said sick cut then, but that's a separate livery that may or may not be something I'm making. But yeah, that's a pretty good homage there, isn't it, John?
Yeah, absolutely. So of course the iconic silk cut livery theme on Tim Ireland's Jaguar. A bit of an avid skinner, I think. Tim Ireland is himself knocking that one up in behind the scenes of that one.
What did you say? An avid skinner?
Yeah, You know, livery maker, skinner, whatever you want to call
Interesting
them.
choice of words, John.
Everybody used to be a skinner back in the day.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, we never had liveries. We never had livery editors back in the day. It's also fancy now, of course, as you know, terminology's moved
Maybe
on.
we should bring
Society
the
has changed a
terminology
bit.
back, John.
Maybe we should.
Yeah,
maybe we should.
It just makes it sound more complicated. Maybe they should be called livery engineer or something like that. You know, make it more complicated.
It's like those job titles you see in the real world that are like senior business development planner, engineer, forecaster, and it's like, what does that even mean? And you basically make the tea, I guess.
I think that's mostly like, oh, Ted was gone a bit wide there over the sausage curve, and I think that's a Lindgren who's just coming up and just going, thank you very much, Ted, and there we go, pretty straightforward pass, but have to be in that position to take advantage, I guess. So probably going to see this from Ted. Ted's kind of just probably just put his foot on the accelerator just a bit too early there, John. Come over the exit and yeah, just go straight over those. What is the purpose of them, John? They seem like they just lose more curbing. Really, you're already gone wide at that point. Why are they there?
I think it's to stop people probably abusing the track limits really kind of excessively is the word I'm looking for there. I think, of course, when you have all the extra smooth tarmac on the outside, you think, you know what, I'm going to use that. Classic example, Paul Ricard. You know, look how much people exploit exit curbs at Paul Ricard. And then, of course, you try and do it here, and all of a sudden you've got some giant speed humps in the way. I'm 99% sure when NASCAR raced here, there was lots of abuse of track limits on exit particularly, if my memory serves me right.
I
Jesse
thought,
Lee
John, yeah, I thought, John, that is it NASCAR or IndyCar where they say, well, if it's tarmac, it's on the track or something like that? Or am I thinking wrong? Oh, but Jesse's quipping in our ears again. Jesse's quipping our ears again, and we can't. Jeffy Lee, yeah. So we move on to a battle to the lead between Rybecki and Daly. This is like a new trilogy of replays coming up soon, I think, John. As they come into the, what is this, John? Is this like the I don't call it the carousel then, but I don't really know what it is. Like a long right-hander towards the end of the circuit. I call it a carousel anyway, but probably not.
I'll say I've got it down as the track map has turned 17, 18, so that'll do me nicely. I think keeps it nice and simple. Rather than remembering corner names. Jordan Daly peels off into the pit lane for his mandatory pit stop. Of course, we do have a mandatory pit stop, as Phil touched on earlier. Lane has been open for 5 minutes. The mandatory requirements, of course, drop down the pit lane within the pit window, dumping a litre of fuel, tyres completely up to the drivers, as Neil Pimlott also elects to take his mandatory stop. So it does keep the strategy kind of varying. Of course, like we said earlier, the Jaags typically a bit more friendly on the tyres than the V12, so you might see some V12s taking tyres, although it didn't pay off in Suzuka, if you remember. Lots of drivers elected to take some tyres there, especially in the V12s, and the V12s were catching the Jaags at an alarming rate, but they weren't kind of getting past the Jaguars at all, which, you know, it's all very well taking the tyres, having the speed, but then you kind of reach this stalemate where you just can't get past the car ahead. And as we see Neil Pimlott roll off the lane, Jordan Daly is free and gone as well. And looking to the pit stop times, Raphael Huell 49.4 into out, Jordan Daly 52.4 into out, and Neil Pimlott 51.3 into out. So it looks like at the moment, within the first 5 minutes, Phil, nobody yet has taken tyres.
No, I think we're probably going to see tyre changes, like, if there is any, in the next 10, 15 minutes or so. There's no point changing your tyres when there's still over half the race to go. As we see the start of a new trilogy of replays here between Rybecki and Daly. I hope this is better than some sequel trilogies I've seen. But yeah, but yeah, it's still going on between these two. They're keeping it reasonably clean, I'd say. It's certainly a bit of hard racing, as we see Raphael Huell here. He's pitted. He's just overtaken Keith Whipple for 17th, and he's not yet pitted. So yeah, I think. We can go back to your point there, John, because as we focus on Raphael Huell, who has pitted quite early, I think when you pit early, as much as you get an advantage through potentially more clean air, I think one of the issues then becomes you put a lot of faith in your own consistency, your own pace, because you're you're not you're not with other people, so you don't really know if you're losing time to them, if you're gaining time to them. You just have to just sit there and back your own consistency. It's sort of like being in a hot lap session by yourself for a bit. But it's a strategy. It's a valid strategy, of course. And hopefully it plays out for Huel. As we move on to see Les Stevenson in the what's this now, Roker Poker Team Jaaag, that was, and riding on back from Kevin Boss in the Wheelie Slow Racing Jaaag. Still an interesting battle between the two. I think both have had a fair bit of practice at COTA now after Saturday. I think Les, when he joined the box with me on Saturday, had only nice things to say about this track, John.
Yeah, lots of drivers not really favouring the track over the weekend. Each one we spoke to questioned why it made its way to the World Tour calendar, but of course keeping the variety alive, I guess you could say, on that one. Of course, we are riding on board with our very own Kevin Boss, who, like you say, was in the box over the weekend. He is currently streaming over on Twitch. Link in the chat for you guys there, so go and show him some love and support as he begins his crusade on to the back of Mike Redford, as we see a few more penalties here being handed out. So we'll go from the top with a lap 3, turn 11. That's involving the 46, the 95 and the 60. It was deemed a 20 seconds for the car 95 for taking out the 46 position, not returned. We then have a lap 5, turn 11 to 12, involving the 31 and the 46. That was the bump drafting we saw between Les Stevenson and Kevin Boss. No further action on that one. Lap 5, turn 20, involving the 28 and the 100. It's a 20 seconds, a 10 seconds, for the number 100. Of course, that was the Ollie Mulder and Byron clip that we're seeing there. And expertly called, Phil. You did predict the 10 seconds and bang on the money there. Lap 5, turn 20, involving the 28. It's a 5 seconds for the 28. Unsafe rejoin for forcing another car off the track. And then we have a few more minor contacts. Lap 7, turn 12, involving the 197 and the 127. And also lap 9, turn 13, involving the 197 and the 127 as well. So the Rybecki and Daily Wars, of course, are...
is that what they're called now? Do we have a better name for that than that?
We're going to have to maybe come up with a name for sim racing's greatest greatest couple.
No, they're not. We had Jesse Lee said that should be the Jag off, and I said... and then they said, I nearly said it should have been called the Jag War, but they're not in Jags either, so it doesn't really work, John. We need to come up with something related to Astons. We see John, I see John, Mike Redford serving his 20-second penalty as well as his pit stop.
Yeah, of course, in ACC, for those of you that aren't familiar, any penalties given out by our live stewards will, of course, be served in the pit lane. So you will be held stationary for an additional X amount of time. So we have Ollie Mulder, of course, with 5 seconds, and Matthias Byron with 10. Their pit stops, of course, elongated, and Mike Redford's also elongated by 20 as well. If you have any catchy names for the Rybecki versus Daly kind of incidents we've been seeing at the moment, then of course drop them in the YouTube or the Twitch chat, and we'll have a look through, keep our eye out for them, and we'll have a think up here in the box as well. But meanwhile, Rybecki getting pressured at the moment by Christian Lindgren. Of course, the Sim Brothers Racing entry was the fastest car on the track some moments ago. The track status has gone up from green to fast, so again, lap time should be getting faster. But of course, with tyres kind of dropping off after the majority of their use in the first sector, the first kind of half of the race, should we say, as we come up, of course, to the 26-minute mark, 34 minutes left to go. It's about that time we start seeing cars coming down the lane, hopefully, if they are electing to take some tyres. Of course, like we discussed earlier, you don't want to leave the fresh tyres too late, because then you can't get the most out of them on a lap. And of course, riding on board now with Christian Lindgren. Let's just listen to that V12 for a minute, Phil. It's got to be one of the best sounds in ACC, surely, as Christian Lindgren nearly runs into the back of Rybecki there. A flash of the lights, I think, from Lindgren. Maybe an apology, maybe a displeasure flash. Who will know on that one? But yeah, Lindgren's certainly looking very fast at the moment as Andy Boardman comes down the lane. Keith Whittle down the lane and out again as he comes off pit limiter, accelerating up the hill towards turn 1. Of course, got to be very careful on the rejoin because you're almost kind of plonked on the apex as you come out of the pit lane, and the gap that Rybecki had pulled out from the first turn has already closed up, and I think we're going to see a bit of a slipstream battle on our hands here down between turns 11 and 12.
Well, I'll tell you what, John, I reckon the happiest person on track at the minute is probably Jordan Daly for two reasons. I mean, Rybecki's not really pulling away, he's not focusing on pulling out that gap as Daly's already pitted, and potentially the fastest man on track, Matthias Beyrun, is being held up by Rybecki, so we could actually see the 197 take a fair bit of advantage here, potentially. It depends on if Lindgren can make his way past. I was going to say, we have a new movie franchise potentially here, John, Rybecki against Lindgren, but probably just a spin-off movie potentially. But yeah, I was going to say, like, speaking of movie franchise, I'm pretty sure the Sim Brothers cars are usually with that Jurassic Park style livery, aren't they? I was a bit not disappointed, but a bit sad to see that they didn't have them for these cars for this champ. But either way, the important thing is that at least they're represented. I think there's Lindgren and Beyrun. I think have we had a Nordquist in this champ, John? I'm not really sure, but
yeah, there was a Nicholas Nordquist apparently just about missed qualifying by about a minute or so, he said. So he did try and make it, but unfortunately couldn't get into tonight.
You could start the race. You could start the race from the back, though, couldn't you? Or did he fancy that? But he didn't know. He didn't know. He didn't fancy, which is fair enough. It's your choice at the end of the day. If you don't want to start from the back, we move on. Speed from Astons to Jaags. There's another fight that's been going on for a good portion of this race now, John. Kevin Boss against Les Stevenson. Both cars yet to pit. Both cars have not got a penalty on them. I think Kevin Boss has just gone a little bit wide there, but one of the advantages of going wide, it sounds a bit weird saying that, John, but you can get your car straightened up a lot earlier than if you take the proper line, and there's a bit of a benefit on these long straights if you just take that weird late apex in a way where your car's straighter, you end up putting your foot on the accelerator earlier and just get that speed line advantage through the main straights. Marco Fasciuto, as Jesse Lee screaming in my ear to say that's how you say the name, comes in for his mandatory stop in a more traditional coloured Jaguar, should we say, John?
Yeah, almost reminiscent, isn't it, of the Jaguar F1 days,
yes.
Should we say, with the HSBC livery. Fun fact about that car, they did, the F1 car, I mean, they did, of course, want to paint it British Racing Green. However, this is very interesting, British Racing Green as a paint is too dense. It added too much weight to the car, so they had to go for that kind of brighter kind of green shade. It's a true fact. Look it up.
Didn't they do what McLaren did? What can they do what McLaren did? Because didn't McLaren back in the day invest a lot of money to make their chrome paint lighter? Or am I thinking wrong? I remember there was something about McLaren and chrome paint where they invested a lot of money into making it lighter. But again, I think that's the problem with I think that's the problem with darker colours, is that the because you have to put more pigment in it to make the colour up, that it's marginally heavy. I mean, in most applications it doesn't matter, but I think in the weight obsessed world of Formula One it does matter. And as we see, is that ships in there, John, just coming off the track? Is that Martin Foster just coming off the track? Just been corrected there. Had a bit of an off. I'm not really sure that's any contact or anything like that, or if we just had a bit of a traction issue coming out the corner. We'll find out eventually at some point. Jordan Daly there makes his way. I think that's is that full position? I'm not really sure that's full position or not. I'm not sure that's Wivell in just behind him, but he's making his way through. John, he's not being held up too much, but Rybecki and Lindgren still half a second between each other at the minute for the lead. So we'll see if that little argument is detrimental. Argument, the little battle for the lead is going to be detrimental to Rybecki come the end of the race.
Yeah, it's all about kind of choosing your fights, isn't it? You don't want to get kind of tied up all too much, but at the same time, you obviously don't want to kind of give up those track positions and all important championship points along the way. As Matthias Byron comes down the pit lane, of course, plus 10 seconds to his name, so that's going to hold him a little bit longer as well. Meanwhile, the fight at the front, Rybecki and Lindgren still ongoing, and in the background, of course, Spoda Skrillex only 2.5 seconds over the last timing gate to the good, 2.9 this time on that one, as these guys come, of course, into the final kind of twistier section. It's a very tricky section to get right in a modern day GT3 car, let alone, of course, in one of these older machineries with, very dated traction control. We've heard lots of drivers complaining about that in the mixed conditions throughout the practice week that we've had on the run up, of course, to tonight's race. So a lot of drivers probably electing to dial it right down or maybe even turn it off, as is such the meta on a lot of the newer cars within ACC and the esports scene at the moment. Ted Edwards, of course, has done his pit stop. He's out on track down past Richard Whittle. Getting past him, of course, Richard Whittle still yet to pit. Ted Edwards, of course, making light work in a straight line of that Jaguar. 12.5 minutes still on the pit window to go, and we've still got about half the field, I would say, just under maybe half the field on this one, as Lindgren looks to the inside. But once we go to the helicam, nowhere near getting a pass done on Rybecki, and that's so misleading coming into turn one. That low camera angle.
Couldn't use that camera angle ever again, Jesse.
It really caught us all off, didn't it? In the box here, we thought that was a lot closer than it was going to be as they form back into single file, of course, through the S as they go. Spoda Skrillex 2.2 to the good now. That gap has come down ever so slightly through that last sector. So there he is, Spoda Skrillex looming in the background, and could make it up on pit lane should that be a thing. Of course, Rybecki, we know Phil has some damage. Will he elect to repair it, or will he just fight on? He's leading the race quite comfortably from Lindgren, still not getting through. So damage may not be such a problem for Rybecki at the moment.
No, not. I don't think it's worth repairing at all. This race is way too tight for Rybecki to be even thinking or even like entertaining the idea of repairing this car. I suspect he's had at the most 2 seconds of damage, but still not enough. And I mean, Skrillex catching these two is demonstrating what I was talking about before. I reckon Jordan Daly is having an advantage. Oh no, Lindgren's actually made it round the outside, so I guess I'm gonna have to eat my words, John, that you can't make it around the outside, and Rybecki's having a go. He's coming around the inside line, and he's just gonna about see these two go side by side. I think Rybecki is, and I think he's a little bit naughty there from Lindgren. I'm not really sure if he just forced Rybecki out of track there, but we'll see eventually. The camera angle again sometimes tells half a story, but fastest man on track, Christian Lindgren now in P1, and that will he's got 10 minutes now to try and pull a gap on him. I reckon because of how close Skrillex has got, I reckon Daly's probably gained a fair bit of time. In fact, Skrillex has gained like a second in sector 3 alone there, and in this race, John, I reckon like we're talking like half a second is going to be crucial. I mean, they've just both lost a second to Skrillex in sector 3 alone. Like I reckon if there's enough if Lindgren may have enough time to pull the gap out, but I think based on this pace slowing, I think Daly's 197 has probably, not factoring in any traffic, but I think Daly's 197 probably made the jump, or I suspect he has over these two. But you can already see that Lindgren through the S's alone, he's already pulled a half a second on Rybecki already, John. So he's fairly strong through this first sector.
Yeah, I think we got another timing gate down the back straight here, so we should get an updated one, hopefully. Just touching on your point, of course, about Spoda Skrillex, made up 2 seconds that last lap on Rybecki. Last lap, Spoda Skrillex 2:09.1, Rybecki 2:11 flat. So it's nearly 2 seconds. That's just from fighting Lindgren through, one sector here at COTA, going side by side and not having the optimal lines through every corner. So that's how crucial it is to really pick your fights and you don't want to surrender as such, but again, you don't want to waste time squabbling because, like you said, that's only going to bring more people into the fight. Of course, both Skrillex, Jordan Daly, like you say, Ted Edwards, of course, down the back end of the kind of top 10 at the moment. Of course, Raphael Huel just inside the top 10, 2.5 seconds off the back of Ted Edwards. So this could get relatively close once everybody has cycled through the pit stops. Of course, Richard Whittle, Tim Ireland still yet to make theirs. And of course, the top 7 currently on your screen on the left-hand side yet to make theirs as well. As Rybecki peels off into the lane, gets the car on the limiter very early, slowed down just in time. Saw a few scary moments in the World Tour of drivers coming in very hot, nearly hitting the outside wall and kind of grinding down the Armco as they came into pit lane. But thankfully, everybody here so far getting it checked up in time. So Rybecki now down the pit lane, of course, into his box. He will go. We're going to have to watch the pit stop timer to see what the Connection Loss Racing team will do. And this is the car they were, of course, racing on track. Jordan Daly in the Race Ventura number 197. He's coming through the penultimate corner now, and he's been on a right old charge these past few laps. So let's have a look. Where will Rybecki come out? The pit stop has counted. Of course, the square has gone green, so that means he's moving out of the timing tower. He goes through the pit exit line, off the limiter, punches the throttle, of course, through the firewall, up the hill. Daly's going to have much more speed. Daly's going to have a hotter tires, but he's nowhere near, indeed, Phil. Just in the back of the shot there. Daly. Daly comes out there, and of course Rybecki just going through the front of the shot, and Ted Edwards just in the back of the shot as well. So these guys have really been split up through the pit stops so far, and just looking to Rybecki's time, 48.2 seconds down the lane. Jordan Daly 52.4. So 4 seconds different between the Connection Lost entry and the Race Ventura car of Jordan Daly. Plus, we're being told in our ears, maybe a little bit of a fight with Ted Edwards in the number 8 as well to get past. So I can't imagine that has done too much for Jordan Daly's progress, as Tim Ireland also comes down the lane, and Andy Boardman finds himself behind Neil Pimlott's car. Going to need a pair of sunglasses for that one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to eat my words there. For the thing, I didn't really account for Daly's fight through traffic there, but it does go to show one of the things that may happen is that if Skrillex can stay with Lindgren's pace, he may just jump everyone. It may just jump people as well, as Lindgren's just coming to the pits now. Out of the leaders, we ride on board with Andy Boardman. In front of us here, Neil Pimlott in the pink 45 Aston. And we're going to see now just how, when this Aston's still pulling away from us, even though we're in this a little bit of the slipstream, while we're about 3 or 4 tenths behind, so we should have a little bit of slip. But yeah, I think these Jaags are probably going to have a bit of a frustrating time. As we see there, our leader Lindgren pitting, as P4 Zhao Manso is also pitting for his scheduled stop, and we'll just see where Rybecki is. Rybecki's only just come through the last corner now, and Lindgren's Lindgren's going to be comfortably ahead, to be honest. There's Rybecki. Lindgren's just left the pit lane now, and Rybecki's not even hit the timing line as he comes out. There he is. He's gained about a second maybe on him. He's 2.5 out the pit lane, so Lindgren comfortably ahead. And one thing to note as well is that when Lindgren pitted, Skrillex was about just over a second behind him. So based on that, I'd say that Skrillex is a bit of a dark horse for a podium today, John.
Yeah, Skrillex has always been a bit of a dark horse in the races. I mean, even in the GT4 versus TCX Cup that we ran, he was a bit of a dark horse in the M2, even, suffering a massive accident at the Red Bull Ring, and still managed to fight back, I think, for a podium, or, near enough as he could get to a podium, as Andy Boardman looks very racy behind Neil Pimlott's car through the S's, of course, turns 3, 4, and 5. This is 6. They're coming through now before the switch back to 7. It's all very much single file. And, of course, the dirty air coming off the back of Neil Pimlott's car isn't going to be helping Andy Boardman. But you can see the Jaguar is just that much more confident, especially in the medium to slow stuff, the high-speed stuff. The Aston does kind of, match it in the pace as they come down to turn 11. Of course, Boardman not going to be close enough to get a send down the inside, but can he get a better exit than Neil Pimlott? Pimlott does run a little bit wide, gets a bit late on the power, and of course the 12 cylinders of Fury are going to be firing, but equally the V8 of Andy Boardman alongside, trying its best to catch up with it, but of course it's going to have to pull in behind. It just doesn't quite have the legs on the Jaguar, despite the worst exit from, of course, the Neil Pimlott coming out of the corner. But yeah, so much better on the brake. Sorry, I'm very distracted, Phil. Sherlin George in the 868, currently the fastest car on the track. I'm very confused. I can only assume that he has taken tyres, but that's really thrown me off while I was trying to cast that.
Yeah, well, so that's one of the issues where you have like eyes on the track, eyes on the timing tower. Speaking of which, Bodis Skrillex has pitted. Or he's in the pit lane. I think he's just come out now. I don't know where is he? He just come out now. He's level with Rybecki for P2. He just dived. He's just had a bit of a moment where he had a bit of traction there. He's definitely on TC2, but had a bit of a moment there. I think he had a bit of I'm trying to figure the right word now. Not red mist, probably a bit of tunnel vision. Seeing Rybecki, he's gone, here's my chance for P2, and yeah, just had a bit of a moment there. But he's still with him though, John. That's the key thing at the minute. And Lindgren's not that far up the road. And one thing, I'm just checking the stream channel, just seen Carlos Calatiud's comment, no DTs yet. That's another thing to note for this track, John. We did see a few of them in the World Tour race midway through. That, this track is very, very strict on track limits, as we see, Tom Shipson, our current leader. He's yet to pit though, but still a strong race. It's been one of those quiet but tidy races from Tom Shipson. Usual sort of race for him, I'd say. That's like very steady driver. As we move on to P2, Les Stevenson also had a bit of a quiet race so far. He's still a bit of a pit stop behind. And if we go back, like one more car, we'll see like a gaggle of 4 cars. That's Kevin Boss in the middle there, John. He's yet to pit, and he's right in the middle of this effective fight for the podium.
Yeah, Kevin Boss probably panicking kind of every way right now, staring at his mirror, seeing where Rybecki is, seeing what Spoda Skrillex is doing, trying not to get caught up in the fight. I think if I was Kevin right now, I would definitely be coming down pit lane, but of course the timer is out, so Kevin does have to come down the pit lane along with Les Stevenson and Tom Shipston. Of course, 2-minute lap roughly here at Circuit the Americas. And only 1 minute on the pit timer. So Kevin Boss well remembered down the lane. Les Stevenson equally so as well, and Tom Shipston there. So that frees up the leaders essentially that were of course behind Christian Lindgren. Rybecki, Lindgren's already used that to his advantage to pull out a good gap between himself and Rybecki on that one. Just went for the timing board to time the shuffle there as Rybecki gets loose on the exit. Can Spoda Skrillex pull alongside? He hasn't got the drive off the corner, of course. Both cars equal machinery. It's very hard to find that extra gap, but you can see how fast Skrillex was closing up there as he came into the S's. And like you say, Phil, track limits were a big topic that myself and Mitch Hobbs were talking about during the World Tour pre-show, during the build-up, and through qualifying we saw a few laps invalidated, but when it got to the race, I believe it took at least 3 or 4 hours before somebody netted the first kind of natural drive-through penalty, and I think it could have been one of the Rebound Racing cars. And Jesse Lee telling us in our ears only 4 drive-through penalties given out for the World Tour. So no matter what we think, as Skrillex very late on the brakes, they're really trying to close up everything they can. And of course, this is going to be aiding Ted Edwards into his crusade onto the back of these guys as well. Jordan Daly, that's not Ted Edwards, that's Jordan Daly just behind in their 2 similarly liveried cars, as Kevin Boss and Christian Lindgren trade a little bit of paint into turn 1. And we see in the background there, Rybecki and Spoda Skrillex getting involved on that one. But Christian Lindgren, of course, freed to the front of the grid now, some 2 seconds ahead of Rybecki, with, of course, Skrillex breathing down his neck. But in the background, it looks like Daly has closed into Skrillex as well. So, again, this is going to be potentially a 3-way fight on our hands for Team Aston. And like I said in the beginning, this could all unravel very fast if friendly fire happens, because of course, Yao Manzo and Raphael Huell aren't too far behind realistically should trouble happen. And of course, Matthias Byron just at the back here with Richard Whittle and Mike Redford. This is going to be another three-way fight that we thought we would never see. But of course, Redford slightly out of position due to his 20-second penalty from earlier on.
Yeah, I was gonna mention one thing about. I think Skrillex just had a few really bad corners. I think he just had a bit of a outbreaking himself moment into turns, just onto the main straight basically, and that happened at the end of the straight. And Jordan Daly's managed to gain about, well, quite a comfortable 2 seconds on Skrillex there. So I think Rybecki's now had a bit of relief from that little pressure that Skrillex was putting on him. But he may just have that again. I think one interesting thing to note as well, John, is as we mentioned at the start of the broadcast, these Astons, as you go through the stint, they're quite aggressive on their tyres compared to the Jag. I mean, they're both fairly old cars, they're not made for the tyre management that some of these newer cars are made for. But the Jags at the minute, like João Manso he was about 5 and a bit seconds off Skrillex the lap before. He's now that's 10 over, sorry, he's like 4 and a bit now, so that gap is slowly coming down. I think this race I don't think it's going to be a challenge that there's going to be a Jag on the podium unless like a penalty, either a DT or a steward incident happens. But as we see, Jordan Daly's really sniffing up the inside. Skrillex is turning in. I think Daly's probably just about made it there, John. It's pretty controlled dive bomb there. I don't want to call it an overtake, because Skrillex is still around the outside. He still had a bit of a nudge there, bit of contact. Don't think there's anything really. I think Skrillex just turned a little bit on Daly, not really that much either in it. And Jordan Daly's made the move stick up to P3, and now he can go chase Rybecki, and maybe we'll see more additions to the many trilogies of this fight, John.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, Daly just about managed to get it drawn up, didn't he, into turn 12. Certainly pushed the brake pedal as far as it would go into the firewall of that car. Probably chucked the anchor out the window as well for good measure, just to get it drawn up in time. Skrillex, of course, given the space, tried to do the old up and under into the next sequence of corners, but just couldn't get the drive off the corner. Meanwhile, we see the 12 cylinders of Fury underneath Matthias Byron's car, hopefully making light work of Richard Whittle, but Whittle not going down without a fight, certainly driving him all the way into the corner, and Byron around the outside has to get checked up, of course, for all those speed humps on the exit, and does so nicely. Matthias Byron up into P15, it has updated, and Richard Whittle down to P16. Of course, Mike Redford just ahead, so that now frees up the number 100 towards the back of Redford there as he jumps over the speed humps. Interesting note, of course, you're speaking about the tyres there. The track in the top right-hand corner still hasn't evolved from fast. We started off green, it's gone to fast, but we haven't yet reached optimum. So, of course, Pirellis are going to be overworked on this less grippy surface as we see Spoda Skrillex onto the back of Jordan Daly. He's not given up on this one either. He wants that position back, has a little look down into turn 11. Can't quite do it, but it's enough, I thought, to put Daly off, but then Skrillex thinks twice about it, backs out towards the apex and loses all drive off the corner, and that's going to allow the number 197 to maybe break the slipstream somewhat. But if Skrillex can stay with him, he may get the suck back off and then, of course, get closer to the back of Daly. And if Daly can tow Skrillex towards Rybecki, again, this could be a three-way fight as Skrillex so late on the brakes there, really closed up the gap, just about managed to get it under control before, of course, hitting the rear of Jordan Daly's car. But your point about the tyres, of course, lots of drivers, battling each other, driving in dirty air, driving offline. We've seen lots of curb usage from some drivers on the exits of corners as well. So some of these Pirellis probably aren't going to be in the best shape at the moment. And of course, with the Aston Martin not having any rear diffuser like the Jaguar does, of course, that's another factor to throw in the equation. No, officially the Aston doesn't have a diffuser. I think it's got, some aero cutouts in the floor, but it physically hasn't got a diffuser piece underneath the back. From an arrow stream, I believe he mentioned that there's no diffuser, so all the downforce kind of generates itself off the rear wing. So it makes it very hard to generate grip from the rear like you would in a traditional kind of GT car.
We'll tell you what, there we go. Look, I was going to say Spoda needs to get closer so we can see your point, John, but Just about. I was going to mention, I think Skrillex has done the same thing he did a few laps ago when he lost a bit of time behind Rybecki through the end of the long back straight onto the hairpin. I think he's not expecting just how much well, I wouldn't nearly say overspeed then, but you know, the extra speed you get from being behind somebody in the slipstream, and as you go that little bit faster, your braking point changes ever so slightly backwards per se, because you have to make up for that that extra speed with these cars. Obviously, as we said before, these cars not the greatest under braking. I think I remember driving with Austin Devonshire and one of the staff. Oh, and that's very close to that. Not diffuser car there, John. I mentioned before when we was racing with Austin Devonshire in one of the staff races, we picked the V12, and Austin decided to call it the bubblegum brake pads car, basically, and probably apt the way I felt. As we see Sherlin George come in now, he's already got the fastest lap, but maybe he's coming in for some new tyres, John, and just securing that fastest lap.
Yeah, maybe he thinks he can really kind of cement the 868 into the fastest lap of the race. Who knows on that one? But yeah, slightly unscheduled stop here from Sherlin George, but down the lane he comes nonetheless. We see the car drop down there, so I think that indicates possibly a set of tyres, although it did look like a very fast stop if that's what he did. Maybe not enough fuel in the car, maybe a quick splash and dash just to get him over to the end of the line. The last pit stop was a 1 minute 14.7. As we wait for the live timing board to update on our end, just to see what that will come in at. It is a 50.6, so relatively quick stop, so no tyres, probably just some fuel added in to the Aston Martin just to get them through the final 10 minutes or so of this race. But Rybecki still ahead of this small fight going on at the moment between Daly and Skrillex. Race leader Christian Lindgren 3.5 seconds clear now of Rybecki, and Rybecki 1.6 seconds clear of Jordan Daly, but Skrillex isn't giving up. He is glued to the back of the Race Ventura car just ahead, and of course Ted Edwards in the background has been closing up all this time. 1.8 seconds to the good now through the first sector, and Yao Manzo still just off the back, 3 seconds to the good, with Raphael Huell just behind him as well. Big gap back to Tom Shipston, nearly 6 seconds separate himself from Raphael Huell. Another big gap back to Andy Boardman in the number 69 Jaguar as well. Still waiting for that time to come through. So there we go. Nearly 12 seconds back is Andy Boardman, and he's managed to dispatch of Neil Pimlott 3.5 seconds to the good. Looks like Daly is covering off the outside line, trying to stop Skrillex, do the old up and under, but Skrillex is going to be close enough this time, Phil, for a little bit of slipstream.
Yeah, I'm hoping Skrillex is going to just get his braking point right. He can get this done. He can get this job done if he just gets his brake timing right. As we just come into the braking point now, just get that right. I was going to mention, I've seen this happen about 3 times now. There's like, I'm not sure how to call it, John, but there's like at turn 1, there feels like there's like 2 bumps into turn 1. There's like one just as you turn in, and there's one on the apex. And I swear, the amount of times I've seen, I think Skrillex has been caught out of it. Jordan Daly got caught out of it the lap before. Like, I think there's like the apex bump, just like makes it look like the car just pulls the handbrake basically, and you just momentarily go sideways. But just coming through the long, I'm going to call it the carousel, and I'm sticking with that because I've not looked at a track map. I refuse to give corners numbers. I prefer names. I think that gives them more character. Numbers don't have character, John, unless it's like a Suzuka and it's like 130R or something. I don't think a corner. I think it turns. These are, what is this one called? Jesse Lee says it's called Big Red turn 1, and I'll stick with that. 5 stories going up the hill, and it comes back. I think there's one as well at Watkins, which is like an uphill right-hander, like into a hairpin, and it's the same sort of technique. You're sort of letting gravity like pull you or slow your car down. It's very alien in a way. Like you're braking so late for a tight corner, basically. You're just having to trust a what do you call it? A constant, basically, John, aren't you? I know gravity's there, but you just have to trust it's there as you slow down.
Yeah, it's almost like turn 2 into Bathurst, isn't it? As you go up the hill, the hard braking zone, you brake it about, I think it's just after or around the 100-meter board, and Of course, the drag from turn 1 to 2, where you're coming in so hot, it doesn't feel like you're braking early enough, as we see Byron touching the exit curves there, upsetting the car behind Redford. That's going to hamper his run down into turn 1. But yeah, it's very similar to Bathurst. It feels almost unnatural to come into a corner that quick and brake that late, as I think the camera doing us dirty a little bit here. Looked like Byron was coming in way hotter than he was, but Redford also on the defense as well, trying to upset Byron on that one, just trying to put him off a little bit, maybe going into the corner, take his eyes off the apex to see where Redford is going. But yeah, just under 5 minutes to go. Of course, 3 minutes 40 on the clock. Should see roughly another 2 laps, I reckon, this one and another, maybe even 3 actually at a push, judging by where the race leader is. Ollie Mulder coming down into turn 11 here behind Les Stevenson. Checks up, very well held there from the number 28. Just about managed to catch the rear of that Aston Martin and keep it out the back of Les Stevenson as well, which is always good. Rafael Huel and Yao Manzo still duking it out between the Jaguars. Of course, they're trying to hopefully keep it clean, Phil, as Team Jaguar need all they can get in this round. Look at the the top 10. We've got 3 Jags versus 7 Astons, so it's going to be such a good points haul this time by for the Aston Martins compared to the Jaguars. Hopefully these guys hold station, but I don't know. I wouldn't, these guys do enjoy racing and they probably will end up racing each other, but they do need to keep it clean for that all-important Jag versus V12 title.
Yeah, they do. But you know what? The Jags are racing around. They may be slower this race, but they're doing it. They look cooler than the Astons, But I'm not really the fastest driver, John. I'll take looking cool over being fast in this sort of champ at the minute. But we're Jesse trying to work out. Hopefully, Rafael Huel. Come on, Rafael, get close. We need to see what's on the back of this car. And so just going to turn the hairpin, and I don't have a track map. I'm just going to pretend I know what these ons are. But we're trying to work. Jesse's trying to work out, rather than using his free cam, we're trying to work out what it is by just staying on the bumper of Rafael Huel at the minute, and probably looking at the timer now, John, I'd say where's Lindgren now? He's coming up to into the final sector now, so we've probably only got another lap to go, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean they're coming. Where are they? They've just crossed the start-finish line.
No, they
haven't. No, they're in the final sector. Sorry. So, yeah, there'll be this lap and of course another one. It's a 2-minute lap. So yeah, by the time Lindgren gets around, it's going to go 1 time by. So this is going to be the white flag out at this stage, and Rybecki in the background still with Jordan Daly just behind him, and of course Spoda Skrillex just behind him as well, and Ted Edwards has now closed up the gap as well. So it's a top kind of 4 fight on our hands. Of course, Christian Lindgren over 4 seconds to the good now, 4.2 seconds. Jordan Daly 1.2 just behind Spoda Skrillex, breathing down Daly's neck. And of course Ted Edwards 1.1 seconds now. That gap's opened up a little bit in that final sector. Of course, we know Daly's quite strong there from the he was quite weak there from the qualifying, if I remember. Maybe he's found the secret having Spoda Skrillex breathing down his neck, but I'm gonna disagree with you, Phil. I think the Aston sounds better, so it's got to be the pick for me there.
I said looks, not sounds.
Yeah, but
different.
Yeah, looks. I'd rather sound cool than look cool. You know what I mean?
Well, we'll just have to disagree to agree to disagree, John.
We love some controversy in the comms box. We were told we do need more of that between myself and Jesse, so let's have some more of it between me and you, Phil, as this one. Jordan Daly still being pressured by Skrillex out wide. That's going to be a track limits warning indeed, but Skrillex certainly has one to play with. No drive-through penalty popped up yet, and Skrillex is now trying to get the run off the corner. He needs to tuck into the slipstream of Jordan Daly to try and close up, of course, with these cars, the equal engines. They can accelerate the same. It's, who can just drive the car off the corner the fastest, and Daly, I think, has done just about enough now coming down into turn 12. I don't think Skrillex is going to be close enough for a move, but we've seen him be very confident on the brakes. He closes right up into turn 12 and now into the kind of section after, of course, turn 13, 14, 15. The kind of switchback nature of this one, of course. Skrillex just can't find enough to get round as the track status finally reaches optimum in the top right hand side of your screen. So if Sherlin George was on a fresher set of tires, who knows, maybe he could have gone even quicker there at the moment. Possibly, yeah, just beat everybody out of the water randomly in the race, but certainly going to be netting some bonus points for the Aston crew today. And I think it's Christian Lindgren just coming around the final corner beneath us. It is to take the round 3 win here at the Circuit of the Americas. Team V12 prevail once again, and it's the Sim Brothers number 48 coming home ahead of Voister Rybecki in the Connection Loss Racing. Jordan Daly did just enough to hold off Spoda Skrillex, and then we see some team photos coming in on the broadcast as Jesse Lee cuts to a race replay. This is how close it came between Daly and Spoda Skrillex there. It was about a car length between them, if that. And then Ted Edwards coming in as well to try and make the optimum photo finish for these guys. Yao Manso comes through the first of your Jaguars today, followed by Raphael Huell. They kept it clean and a flash of the lights and the indicators there, thanking each other, I think, for the clean and fun races they had. And Raphael Huell with a big slide, tandem drifting into turn 2 there. Tom Shipston comes home in P8, Andy Boardman in P9, Neil Pimlott inside the top 10. Let's have a race replay of the drift from Raphael Huell and Yao Manso, and a touch as well, and a tandem spin backwards. And Tom Shipson, I think they're coming in to give Yao a slight kiss on that one. Neil Pimlott comes through in P10, Ollie Mulder P11, Les Stevenson P12, followed by Kevin Boss, of course, bump drafting each other earlier on in the race. Mike Redford P14, that's not ideal after, of course, the 20-second penalty. Matches Byron equally with the 10 seconds to his name. Richard Withall comes through in P16, and Marco Fucuscio in P17 in the number 20. Martin Foster still out there somewhere. Here he is for the RPMS SimSport car. Of course, the number 44 looped in turn 11 on the opening lap, so that was a big time loss there. And just behind Sherlin George, the fastest man in the race today with a 208.730. I wonder if he's going to try and best this lap. I don't think is he going to do it? I don't know. It's Delta's looking pretty good at the moment. I'm going to have to see if he comes around the final turn, if he can get the drive off the corner. Can he go any quicker? Sherlin George to the line. He does. A 208.977. So, yeah, fastest lap to him there as well. And here's your race standings as they are live. Of course, no penalties to be given out by the game after the checkered flag today. Of course, results are pending any kind of, stewards' inquiries after the race. But for tonight, it has been a relatively calm one, I would say. The last couple of laps, we had nothing from lap 9 until lap 20 and lap 22. And then all the reports have closed. Nobody retired today. All 21 cars that started, I believe 21 cars on the board there, have started and finished the race. So 100% success rate on that one as well. And if you've liked, of course, what you've seen tonight and you do want to get involved with us here at RCI, you can head on over to the website. That's racerci.com, where you can catch all of our events anytime, day or night, and get your names down for them as well. Of course, this week coming, Wednesday, we'll see our Sprint Championship begin with a slightly different format to your usual 1 hour races. It's 2 30-minute races with no mandatory pit stop required, meaning it's flat out racing from green to the checker. Sign-ups are still open on that one. Myself and Phil have both entered as well, so if you do want to get involved with us there. Mustang. Exactly, and you get to drive the Mustang. That's a good point, Phil, of course, released just the other week in ACC, so that could be the first kind of test bed for the Mustang for yourself. Thursday, of course, is for the iRacing members. IMSA Season 2 finishes up at Le Mans this week. Friday, we'll also see an empty slot this week due to the GT2 Championship finishing in Spa last week. Jordan Daly taking honours after a very close finale with Christopher Streppen only losing out due to Jordan Daly having more wins, both taking 270 points each. Ted Edwards taking the bronze trophy home in Pro. Meanwhile, silver honours went to Kevin Boss after beating Peter Varga 305 points to 269, with Mike Jones coming in third. Also on the website at the moment, a new iRacing event. It's the Watkins Glen 2.4 hours, 2 hours 40 minutes, serving a purpose of a pre-test for the official iRacing 6 hours at the Glen. That takes place on Saturday, the 25th of May, mirroring, of course, the official car entry list without any custom BOP will give you the best preparation environment for the official 6 hours. Also last week announced was Friday's new championship. It's Gran Turismo 2 Diventa Italiano, taking you on a whistle-stop tour of the Italian tracks within ACC in GT2 cars. Kicking off at Monza, heading to Imola, and then on to Misano. 1 hour, 20-minute races with a litre of fuel in a mandatory pit stop, leaving strategy very open. That, of course, kicks off Friday, the 31st of May. Alongside, of course, the website down below, you will find all of our partners that support us along our journey here at RCI, including AK Esports, of course, a leading Italian company in esports management and organization across the world, including providing our server solutions here at RCI. Driver61.com, where you can, of course, get 25% off your driver coaching by using our discount code and affiliate link in the description below. Fanatec, again, needs no introduction, and some big news just last week on those guys potentially being bought out, of course, by Corsair. That's going to be a very interesting one to keep your eye on. Of course, you can find our RCI affiliate link down below, which does, of course, help us with some of the running costs we do incur. So if you are looking to pick up any new hardware this season, please do so. DigitalMotorsports.com, of course, a new partner for us just last year, offering a number of products and services right from virtual driving experiences all the way up to complete SimRig solutions and everything in between. Head on over to their website if you believe that they can help you. And lastly, but no means least, of course, Go Setups, formed to be a premium esports setup store for Assetto Corsa Competizione, with their primary aim to create setups for all skill levels, whether, of course, you're esports ready or just looking for a safer alternative. And just last week, a full release of the Mustang has come out as well. So if you are looking to compete in Wednesday in a Mustang and you need some setups, of course, those are going to be the guys to go to for that one. But, of course, for tonight, Team Jaaag versus Team V12 is that time when we do say our goodbyes. Of course, it's been a fantastic race. Been some very close battles along the way, and of course we are continuing this championship next week when we head to round 4 at Zolder. The week after, we're at the Glen before rounding off at Laguna Seca on June 3rd. So championship very much still alive between all the drivers at the moment. And if you do fancy a mid-season sign-up, of course, head on over to the website racerci.com, where you can get your name down for this one. But from myself, of course, John Dalton, from Phil Roberts alongside me, and of course Jesse Lee behind the cameras, we hope you have a wonderful rest of the week. Take care of yourselves, and we hope to see you again very soon on RCI TV. Take care.